Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. This is Michael today with the Sunset Single Player, and today we're reviewing a fairly new game on the PlayStation 5, and this game is of course the Ubisoft Montreal game, Assassin's Creed Valhalla. If this is your first time to the channel, welcome. The last video review I completed was all about Spider-Man Miles Morales. If you'd like to check it out, that's roughly an 11-minute video I did prior to this. And before we get right into it, I do want to mention that I did pay $50. There was a nice sale on Amazon. I did buy the PS4 disc that included a free PlayStation 5 upgrade, so a really good deal there for a lot of content. This game did take me about 55 hours to complete, and that's by doing mostly the main quest with a little bit of side quests and raids mixed in. And we'll get into what the raids are a little bit later in the video. In AC Valhalla, we play as Eivor, who's really just a big Norse Viking. He is from Norway originally, so the purpose of the game is we did leave Norway along with our kind of foster brother Sigurd, who we grew up with after a violent event disturbed our family.
This place is incredible!
After some new leadership that Eivor and Sigurd do not agree with is established in Norway, we actually set out for a new life in England, and this gameplay you see captured here is all in England. And our main quest in the game once we reach England is that we want to build alliances with as many groups in England as we can by helping them with their problems and their battles and their wars so that eventually we can conquer the entire country. As we make these alliances and come across some really big and epic battles, we do have to make some nice choices that do impact the story and certain key moments throughout the story, which I think is a really big strength of Assassin's Creed Valhalla. I do think the majority of the strength in this game really lies in its narrative and its great story that keeps you plugging right along. And visually, the game is very striking. If you can see here, the great green grass and the trees, and the lighting really shines through the trees in a really impressive way in this game. They did achieve 4K at 60 FPS on the PlayStation 5, so the game overall runs very smoothly and just looks amazing. You also notice these red flowers dotting the landscape. However, I do think a big weakness of the game is that it is a little bit buggy, which is to be expected for a large open world game like this with just an enormous map spanning not only England and Norway, but also a couple areas we'll get into later in the video as well. So once we arrive in England, we do set up our home settlement in an area called Ravensthorpe, and in Ravensthorpe we can build up our community by completing missions and getting raw materials and supplies. So like I mentioned, most main quests and missions in the game consist of Eivor speaking with region's leaders and figuring out that there are power struggles and personal issues that plague a lot of these side characters that we have the end goal of making our allies. And while I was very engaged in the narrative and the story throughout this game, one complaint I have is that the game did get a bit repetitive in this sense. So most quest lines do consist of just stabilizing power throughout the country, and some of them just get a little bit samey throughout the time, and I think they could have trimmed down the quest lines in the game. I think there's like 16. I really would have preferred if they just had like 12 or something and just trimmed 4 of the least memorable ones just to make it a more tight experience. So as we complete these missions, we get XP that in turn can allow us to increase our power level, and our power level is increased once we select different skills that allow us to make Eivor stronger. And just like there is choice in the narrative that makes this a great role-playing game, you also have choice in how you want to upgrade your powers and your skills. So I do think that most of my skills that I upgraded were all based on combat. I really did want to make Eivor as strong as he could be, and you are able to kind of embed your weapons with fire and poison, and there is a cool arrow skill shot I learned that allowed me to fire a bunch of arrows at once that was really, really effective. And at that point, that does get me into the combat in the game. So while the combat in AC Valhalla is pretty solid overall, I can't help but feel that it's just missing a little bit of something, and I think that has to do with the fact that I did recently play through Ghost of Tsushima, which I do think those two games are pretty comparable, Ghost and AC Valhalla, and that they're both open world action games with melee based combat, and I do think Ghost just did it a little bit better. It felt more layered with the kunai and the sticky bombs and all the ghost weapons that came along with the katana, whereas AC Valhalla is really just kind of bare bones basic with a few skills that do enhance the experience a bit. So at this point you'll see me blow my Viking horn, and my Viking crew comes in on the Dragon longship, and here we are ready to start a raid, which I do think is a major strength of this game. I thought the raids were a lot of fun and a great way to help build up your settlement. These raids are always a team effort. You definitely need the help from your crew. It's really hard to take them on all by yourself, so I always call them in to help me out. And I believe this raid was a power level 250 that was recommended, and I think I was around a 218 or so when I tried it out, so a bit under level, but with the help from the crew, we can definitely get through with it. And here you'll see some just really violent combat, a nice beheading there from Eivor. I do think Ubisoft Montreal got the whole Viking aesthetic so right in this game. You definitely want this to be a really violent game just based on the times, and I think they really nailed it, as you can see from that just brutal takedown there. So at this point in the raid, I do want to climb these walls to find our raw materials and supplies, which is what you use to build up your settlement back in Ravensthorpe. But first we got to take care of this flame enemy here. These guys are dangerous. You got to look out so that you don't get lit on fire. Every time you do go through and complete a raid, just some really great music pumps through, and it definitely pumps me up and makes me want to take on these camps and pillage and just be a great Viking in this awesome experience. So you'll notice these yellow dots above Eivor's head there. These are what's called wealth in the game. You can find them all over the map, but they're also specific to raids, and these yellow dots in the raids give you the signal of where you can find raw materials and resources in these really big gold chests. And here I'm getting smoked out. You definitely got to be careful on these higher power level raids, and there's even wolves running around. This is kind of a crazy one. And these enemies kind of run away from you, and I think I started to pursue that one and then ultimately went back for the chest, because sometimes I do get a little bit greedy and I do want to go after those raw materials and supplies before clearing everyone out. And here I think this one actually comes back to bite me. I think I get attacked by like a wild hog or something crazy while my fellow Viking tries to help me open that chest, so we do have to take that one out very quickly. And once you do force open the chest, you'll see that you've gained all of these raw materials and supplies that will help you in the camp. And it always felt good to fully raid these camps and get all the raw materials and supplies so that you can go back and put like a brewery or a fishing hut in your camp and make them aesthetically pleasing and upgrade them however you might want to. And you'll see here the combat, like I mentioned, is just a bit basic. I mean, it's really satisfying and violent. It's just not much to it besides just slicing and dicing. And you did see earlier I used that arrow skill shot a little bit earlier in the raid where I shot all of those arrows at once. And here you do have the ability on your R2 button. So here I'll use the fire abilities. This is kind of like Way of the Flame in Ghost of Tsushima. And this does a lot of burn damage or fire damage, whatever you want to call it. So I found that this is really helpful in the raids. And I'm not entirely sure if this gameplay clip will show it up close, but you can also parry and block with your shields. So that does add a bit to the combat. But again, I feel like it's just missing a little bit of something. You don't have like throwing stars like Ghost of Tsushima or sticky bombs or anything like that. It's just kind of Viking violence, which definitely is not a bad thing. I just think they could have added a little bit more to make it more heavily compete in the combat area of some other 2020 games. Oftentimes raids will include some really big mini bosses like this one here, Macbeth, which I think is an awesome name for a mini boss in this type of England setting. And these guys are really tough. I think I might actually get close to dying here. I just wasn't really on my A game. And they just have really wicked spears with a lot of range and just really powerful attacks. So luckily I'm getting some backup here from my Viking fellow comrade who helps slice him and dice him while I kind of cheats him a little bit with this bow and arrow. I'm not above it. So I think Ubisoft did a really good job with these enemy designs. So not only are like the smaller soldiers really cool looking to see, but you can also just finish with these really violent animations on boss enemies as well. So they definitely put a lot of solid work into animation in this game. And here you'll see us open another chest to get some more raw materials and supplies to head on back to Ravensthorpe. And Ravensthorpe again is the area in the game where you'll pledge to your major quest lines. You can even pick up some side quests and then spend these raw materials and supplies to upgrade blacksmith shops and open up breweries and fishing huts. And you'll see here in Ravensthorpe it's snowing a little bit, and there's the blacksmith on our left. So I think the way that Ubisoft made Ravensthorpe kind of your home base to pick up missions was really smart and really easy to follow and understand. And pretty shortly here I'll show you how to pledge to a major quest line and also a couple other things you can do within Ravensthorpe as well. And oftentimes as you run through, NPCs will greet you and offer you side quests, and you'll also be able to see some nearby quests if you'd like to see what else is out there. And here in this longhouse, this is where we hold our feasts and also where Eivor sleeps, as well as bedrooms back here. And we do have a pet wolf now. That's new to me since beating the game, so that's pretty cool. And here we're coming up on Randvi, who is kind of an advisor to the Raven clan, and she does give Eivor some information on various quest lines. And here you'll see the main map, which I've already cleared, showing each alliance that you can make throughout the game to solidify the story and make it through on to the end. So whenever you do want to progress the story, just speak with Randvi and she'll help you out. And each main mission level does have a recommended power level. My rule of thumb was that you just want to make sure you're not too far below 30 levels under leveled. Like if you were 50 or under, that would potentially create some issues for you. But at this point, we're headed on over to the Seer's hut, and this actually leads to some of my favorite moments and memories I have with this game. And real quick, before we go in, I do just want to show you guys this really beautiful waterfall that is in Ravensthorpe, and just a great attention to detail there by Ubisoft. I do think water looks incredible in this game. So in addition to our main goal in the main story of clearing England and ruling all of England, another one of Eivor's goals is to get in touch with his Norse destiny to see how he will turn out, basically. And here we actually had to bring the seer some ingredients, and she concocted kind of a hallucinogenic potion that takes us to Norse realms. And the realms in the game are Asgard and Jotunheim. I'm going to show you guys a little bit of Asgard. I didn't want to include any spoilers here for the quest lines in Asgard, so I just want to ride through the area a little bit and show you what you're in for with this. And I'm very pleased to say that Ubisoft really nailed it with this Norse stuff. A lot of it did remind me of God of War, actually, the 2018 game from Sony Santa Monica, with some of these Norse gods and the realm. And I think it was a definite highlight of the game for me. The areas are just beautiful, and you'll see it just looks so different from England itself. And there's Heimdall's Tower. We do ride kind of an elk or reindeer looking thing in this kind of hallucinogenic mission. These set of missions in these realms really added to the overall experience, and I did enjoy them better than the stuff in England at times. I just thought it was really interesting to see Eivor kind of connect with these Norse gods, and they're towering above everything. You'll see the Norse tree, Yggdrasil, I think it's called, as we ride across this kind of mythical, magical bridge with all these statues of Norse gods and goddesses. Just a really epic entranceway. I really think they nailed the atmosphere of this realm here. I was really impressed when these missions opened up to me, and it really created a longer game and more epic experience. I wasn't expecting to kind of get in touch with Eivor's Norse religious beliefs, and this area again is just stunning. That pool of water, these blue rooftops as we ride on up these steps here on our reindeer, just a really unique experience. So overall, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, amazing package. I do think that if you're on a budget, it's definitely good. You can get the game between 50 and 60 bucks for about 50 to 60 hours of content. The combat is a bit dry, but other than that, the game really succeeds in its atmosphere, its graphics, and its storytelling. I really cared about Eivor as a character and his journey to rule England and also reconnect with his Norse destiny. I should say, the only Assassin's Creed game I've beaten before beating this one was Assassin's Creed Origins, and I'm happy to say that Valhalla does exceed Origins in pretty much every way. While I did like Bayek as a character, I just think that Eivor is more interesting and the world is just more amazing in this game. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I really appreciate the support. So if you guys liked the video, please definitely leave a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for much more PlayStation 5 content coming soon. I am playing through the Demon's Souls remake right now. Really cool game I'm having fun with. So expect a video on that soon. I also want to mention that I do run a weekly video game podcast called The Sunset Single Player that goes live every Tuesday. I did leave the link to that in the description of the episode today. But until next time, guys, thank you so much for checking out my video review of Assassin's Creed Valhalla. A lot of value here with this one, and I hope you guys take the plunge and enjoy it as much as I did.